Good morning. Have you ever seen one of those pirate treasure maps? It shows you where the treasure is, but also lets you know you might encounter some scary or adventurous stuff along the way. Might even show you some where the traps or pitfalls are. Can you imagine having one of those maps in real life? If you did, it'd give you a great advantage over avoiding some huge disasters along your way to the prize. I mean, who takes the path through the trap if they know where it is and how to avoid it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it. Welcome to Leadership on the Run. A treasure map kind of leadership tool that I've learned about in the last few years is called Know Yourself to Lead Yourself. And something to note about the graphic is that there's an infinity loop in the middle. And this indicates that we spend a lifetime learning about and leading ourselves. Going around the outside of that infinity loop, there's a lot of words to deal with. If we start at the bottom, let's look at the word tendencies. We all have tendencies, and we can't change those. Going counterclockwise, we see that those tendencies lead to ingrained patterns that we've developed over time, which lead to an action. Those actions cause certain consequences that lead to a reality. So let me give you an example. So I have a tendency to be defensive. And the pattern there is that happens anytime someone challenges or questions my work. This would be the trap or the pitfall on our treasure map. This is where the skull and crossbones might be. So that pattern then leads to an action, which is that I might get a little more animated or passionate about my idea or my work. I might even come up with a sarcastic question, disguising it as a clarifying question to get more information. People see through that pretty quickly, and they feel like they got to walk on eggshells around me. So they quit sharing information that's helpful. That's the consequence. The reality is that people fear telling me the truth. Well, that's a negative example for sure. We also have positive tendencies that lead to good consequences and a great reality. So keep doing those things. Let's go back to our negative example and see if we can turn that into a positive. So we start with the tendency, my tendency to become defensive. Can't change that. The pattern is that it happens whenever somebody challenges my work. That's the pattern, that's the trap, that's the pitfall. But now, let's see if we can avoid that and avoid the consequences of that by changing our action. So a positive step. What I do now is I say more about that. It does a couple things for me. One, it gives them a chance to clarify. And two, it gives me a chance to regroup a little bit. The consequence is that I hear a little bit more about what they're saying. And certainly there's going to be some level of truth to what they're sharing that's going to be helpful to me. The reality is, we have a helpful conversation, and my work gets better as a result of it. Now you give it a try. This will be your 100 challenge. And remember, we're trying to get to 100% leadership health. What are your tendencies? Take one of those and walk it around the tool and see how it plays out. And then change that potentially negative tendency or negative action into a positive one and see how that can change your reality. Now for your X challenge, and this is where we get to multiply what we're learning into others. So teach this to someone else. Help them identify a tendency and then walk with them around the tool. And then trade out their normal reaction for a more positive one and see how that can change their reality. I first learned about the Know Yourself to Lead Yourself tool on the heels of taking a personality assessment called the 5 Voices. It was the first time that I had encountered something like this in regard to a personality assessment that said I could actually do something about those default tendencies in my life. Prior to that, it was always just, this is who you are. This is how you act. In some cases, we see people take advantage of that and say, hey, this is the way I'm wired, deal with it. Well, we can deal with it. And when we know that, why wouldn't we want to be the best version of ourselves? The 5 Voices assessment will help you to determine what some of your tendencies are. Positive ones and ones that maybe you could work on. I highly recommend you take the assessment. It's free. And we're going to use the language from the 5 Voices in a lot of our videos going forward. I'll put a link in the description below, or you can catch it from this QR code. For those of you who have come along for the run, I am in week 5 of my marathon training plan, preparing for Mississippi Gulf Coast Marathon in December. And I've mentioned before that I'm using the Hanson's marathon method. It's based on cumulative fatigue. And since I'm only in week 5 out of 18, pretty sure I haven't gotten to that place in the program yet. But my body seems to think that I have. It's interesting to see that my Garmin suggests a rest day, like 4 days in a row, before I actually get to my rest day in the plan. I was just reading this week about how to identify the difference between fatigue, that normal fatigue we have because we're training, we're pressing our bodies to do something beyond. So the difference between fatigue and overtraining. And so the idea is that if you're overtraining, your more difficult workouts will start to slip. But if they don't, then you're okay. If they are slipping, then you're probably overtraining. So in looking at my intervals and tempo workouts, I seem to still be within the range of the plan, so I'm going to stay with it. But I do want to watch out for one of my tendencies, which is to overdo things. A friend of mine put it this way: if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. That rarely works out well. Let me know in the comments below what you're training for and how it's going. This week is registration for Boston Marathon 2026. I'm all signed up. All the best to everyone who has registered and might be battling a close qualifying time, or maybe you did a downhill race and got all new numbers for that. I hope y'all get in. Boston is a once in a lifetime experience for a runner. So that's it for today. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you next time. In the meantime, keep moving. Remember, no one gets better by accident. Great leaders are intentional.